How to sand a car for repainting. If your car's paint job is looking a little tired or worn in, you might be thinking about repainting your car on your own. Sanding your car is a super important first step. Without it, your new paint job probably won't look silky and smooth. Set aside an afternoon and spend a few hours sanding your car for a new paint job that looks like a professional did it. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Auto V Fix. We bring you exciting topics about automobiles and provide clear explanations of car-related issues and essential components. We share helpful and professional tips to help maintain your vehicle. Keep watching to learn how to sand a car for repainting. Can you paint over existing auto paint without sanding? Yes, if your existing paint is solid and uncracked. You can use a primer coat to cover your existing paint before adding your new color. The new paint will go on shiny and smooth, and you don't have to worry about sanding anything down. What's the best method for sanding a car? 1. Wear a mask, gloves, and goggles for safety. Sanding creates a lot of fine dust particles that can irritate your lungs, eyes, and skin. Before you start sanding, put on your protective equipment and keep it on until you're finished. 2. Move your power sander in small, smooth, and circular motions. Attach your sandpaper to the power sander and turn it on. Press it up against your car as hard as you can and move it in small circles across the entire panel. 3. Work one panel at a time for an even sanding. You can separate the car into different panels: the doors, the roof, the hood, the trunk, the bumper, and the fender. In total, each panel will probably take about 2 hours to sand down completely. 4. Wipe your car off with a damp cloth before priming and painting. Sanding generates a lot of dust which can get stuck in automotive paint and primer. Before you move on, use a damp cloth to wipe down the outside of your car. What kind of sander should you use to sand a car? 1. Use a power sander for the majority of your car. A power sander will be way easier to use than hand sanding your entire car. Use this tool on the large, flat surfaces of your vehicle like the doors, roof, trunk, and hood. 2. Hand sand small cracks and crevices in your car. The corners of doors, the underside of the body, and the small cracks in between door handles can be tough to reach with a power sander. Keep a few sheets of loose sandpaper around so you can sand down these areas by hand. What grit sandpaper should you use to sand a car? Start with a 180 grit sandpaper. This will roughly take off the outermost layer of paint and primer. You might notice that it looks a little scratched and rough at this point, but that's okay. 2. Go over the paint again with 300 grit sandpaper. This sandpaper is a little smoother, and it will help remove some of the scratches that the previous sandpaper left behind. Your car won't look perfect at this point, but that's all right. 3. Finish with 1200 to 2000 grit wet-to-dry sandpaper. This will give your car the silky, smooth finish that it needs for your new coat of paint. Soak your wet-to-dry sandpaper in water overnight, then use it like you normally would over your entire car. How much do you need to sand before repainting? Sand down to the bare metal of the car. Most experts recommend sanding until you've removed both the paint and the primer from the car. This can take a long time, but the new coat of paint will go on much smoother if you do. Obviously, the kind of sand and the quantity of sanding will depend on what exactly you want to do with the car. How do you deal with rust on your car? 1. Sand it down with 40 to 50 grit sandpaper to start. You can hand sand or use a power sander, depending on where the rust is. Use your sandpaper to strip off the rust and the surrounding paint until you can see bare metal poking through. 2. Add 2 layers of rust converter to the area before you paint. Put on a pair of rubber gloves and use a brush or a sponge to apply a thin layer of rust converter where the rust used to be. Wait 15 to 30 minutes for the product to dry, then add a second layer. Wait for the second layer to dry all the way before you start painting your car. And that's a wrap on how to sand a car for repainting. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe for more DIY automotive content, and hit that notification bell. Drop your comments below if there's a specific topic you'd like us to cover. Until next time, stay safe and happy driving.